Last Saturday, a Badger Honor flight left Madison and landed in D.C., full of veterans from World War II and the Vietnam War. When they got there, they were welcomed by a former president of the United States. WMTV's Lila Gutlerner caught up with a photographer who caught it all on camera.
When longtime Badger Honor Flight volunteer Shalisha Johnson was asked to ride alongside the veterans, she immediately said yes. The photographer, used to capturing veterans' emotions on this special day, had no idea her experience would become part of history, just as soon as they touched down in D.C.
And so they came over, they're like, you know, we'd like you to stay seated, we have an announcement. And then, oh my God, I can't even.
Every passenger was greeted by a surprise guest.
It's Barack Obama.
Well, that's when her photography instincts kicked in. She took out her phone and hit record.
I heard so many vets say, I met Barack Obama today.
Obama was the first president to ever personally welcome the honor flight in the nation's capital. Johnson said the former president had long been an inspiration to her, a leader who she felt represented by.
I think that's part of why I feel so deeply about the experience, because it was joyful, and we haven't had that.
History was made for Johnson, the other volunteers, and every veteran aboard Saturday's Badger Honor flight.
It's just, this will be something that they're going to remember the rest of their lives, and I will too. So I'm just so thankful.
Reporting in Madison, Lila Gutlerner, WMTV 15 News.